kingdom of Velthar died long before its last king did. Alara Voss knew this the moment she stepped through the jagged wound that had once been the Iron Gate. Snow mixed with black ash fell like funeral confetti across the ruined capital. The wind carried the smell of wet iron and old blood. Her boots crunched over bones that had been picked clean by things that no longer feared daylight. She had come for the Ashen crown. Legend said the crown was forged from the skull of the first dragon and the tears of a betrayed god. Whoever wore it could command the dead and bend the living to their will. Alara didn't want power, she wanted revenge. 3 winters ago, her village had burned because Lord Commander Kadric Voss, her own father, had refused to surrender the crown to the necromancer King Malzeth. Instead, he had sent his only daughter away with a single command: if I fall, finish what I could not. Now she was the last of the Voss bloodline, a scarred swordswoman with a broken soul and a sword that drank light. The streets of Velthar whispered as she walked. Pale faces pressed against cracked windows, watching her with hollow eyes. Some still wore the tattered banners of the fallen kingdom. Others had no faces left at all, just shifting black smoke where features should be. The wraiths of the devoured. Alara kept her hood low and her hand on the hilt of her blade. Widow's lament. The sword hummed softly, tasting the corruption in the air. She reached the palace steps at dusk. The great doors hung open like a rotting mouth. Inside, the grand hall was a forest of petrified bodies. Knights, nobles, servants, every one of them frozen mid-scream. Their skin turned to grey stone while black veins pulsed beneath like living roots. At the far end, upon a throne of fused bones, sat Malzeth, or what remained of him. The necromancer king was no longer fully alive. His body was a cage of rusted armor and exposed spine. Where his face should have been, only a crown of blackened bone rested, its jagged points piercing what little flesh remained. The Ashen crown. From its sockets dripped slow, tar-like blood that hissed when it hit the floor. "You came," the thing rasped. Its voice was a chorus of 1,000 dying screams. "The last little bird from Voss's nest." Alara drew her sword. The blade ignited with cold blue flame. "I came to take what my father denied you." Malzeth laughed, and the petrified bodies in the hall cracked in unison. "Your father was a fool. He thought the crown could be hidden. It cannot. It hungers. It called me across the veil. It called you here too, girl." He rose. Bones scraped against stone as his shattered legs dragged him forward. Behind him, shadows peeled away from the walls, his personal guard of death knights, their eyes glowing the colour of old bruises. Alara charged. The fight was not graceful. It was desperate, ugly and wet. She severed the arm of the first Death Knight. Black ichor sprayed across her face, burning like acid. She tasted rot on her tongue. Another knight's rusted blade opened her side. Pain flared white hot, but she kept moving. Widow's lament sang as it carved through undead flesh, drinking their corrupted essence and growing heavier with every kill. Malzeth watched, amused. When only he and Alara remained, he finally stepped down from the throne. "You fight like your father," he said. "He lasted longer than most." With a flick of his remaining hand, he summoned the dead of the entire city. Hundreds of corpses rose from the floor, from the walls, from the very air. They wore the faces of people Alara had once known, childhood friends, her mother's gentle smile now stretched into a snarl of broken teeth, her little brother with half his skull missing. Alara's heart cracked. She fought anyway. Steel met bone, blue flame met shadow. She screamed as she cut down the echoes of her past, tears freezing on her cheeks. Every strike felt like killing her own memories. When the last risen corpse fell, Alara was on her knees, bleeding from a dozen wounds, her sword now black with gore. Malzeth loomed over her. "Give up, little Voss, join them. The crown will make it painless." Alara looked up, blood dripped from her split lip. In her eyes burned something darker than hate. "No!" She lunged, not at the Necromancer King, but past him. Her fingers closed around the ashen crown. The moment she touched it, agony exploded through her mind. She saw every soul the crown had ever consumed. Millions, billions, worlds burned to feed its hunger. She felt her father's final moments, his betrayal, his regret, his desperate hope that she would be stronger than he was. Malzeth roared and tried to stop her. Too late. Alara slammed the crown onto her own head. The jagged bone spikes punched through her skull. Pain became something holy. Power flooded her veins like liquid night. She felt the dead of Vaelthar kneel inside her mind. She felt the Necromancer King's own stolen souls turn against their master. Malzeth staggered back. "What have you—" Alara rose. Black veins spread across her skin like beautiful, terrible tattoos. Her eyes glowed the same bruised purple as the Death Knight's. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 1,000 graves. "I am the last Voss, and now I am the Ashen Queen." She raised her hand. Every corpse in the palace turned on Malzeth. Even his own Death Knights betrayed him, tearing at his armoured shell with rusted blades and broken fingers. The Necromancer King screamed as they ripped him apart piece by piece. When it was over, only silence remained. Alara stood alone in the ruined hall, the ashen crown burning cold against her shattered skull. She could feel the crown whispering, promising her everything, revenge on every kingdom that had abandoned Vaelthar, eternal life, the power to bring back everyone she had lost. But she also felt the price. Already her memories were fraying at the edges. Her mother's face was blurring. Her brother's laugh was fading into static. Soon there would be nothing left of Alara Voss except the thing wearing her skin. She looked down at Widow's lament still clutched in her bloodied hand. With a trembling smile, she pressed the blade against her own throat. "I'm sorry, Father," she whispered. "I wasn't strong enough to resist it, but I was strong enough to end it." The sword drank one final time. As Alara's body fell, the ashen crown clattered to the stone floor, rolling through pools of blood and melted snow. For a moment, the wind outside howled like a mourning widow. Then the crown began to whisper again. Somewhere in the distance, a new traveller heard the call. The kingdom of Vaelthar was dead, but its hunger was eternal. The crown lay silent for 7 nights. On the 8th, the first snow melted into something black and oily that refused to freeze again. From the ruins of Vaelthar, a new figure emerged. His name had once been Thorn Calder, a grave robber, a deserter, a man who had sold his own sister's bones for a loaf of bread during the famine. Now he was something far worse. He had heard the crown's song while hiding in the catacombs beneath the palace, feasting on rats and the marrow of forgotten lords. The whispers promised him warmth, gold, and the chance to never feel hunger again. So he crawled through the blood-slick hall until his trembling fingers closed around the ashen crown. The spikes punched through his scalp with wet, eager sounds. Thorn screamed once, then laughed as power flooded his rotting soul. Memories that were not his own surged in, Alara's final regret, her father's last stand, the faces of every soul the crown had devoured. He stood, crown burning like frozen fire upon his head. Black veins crawled across his pale skin. When he spoke, his voice carried two tones, his own rasping greed and the cold, regal echo of Alara Voss. "The queen is dead," he whispered to the empty hall. "Long live the king." Thorn, no, the thing wearing thorn raised a hand. The petrified corpses in the grand hall cracked open like eggs. Stone flaked away, revealing fresh, hungry dead beneath. They rose in perfect silence, eyes glowing the same bruised purple that had once belonged to Alara. With a single thought, the new Ashen King marched them out of the palace and into the shattered streets. The wraiths of Vailthar bowed as he passed. Even the wind seemed to kneel. Word spread quickly beyond the ruined kingdom. Refugees spoke of a crowned madman leading an army of the restless dead. Villages along the border burned one by one. Lords who had once refused to aid Vailthar now barricaded their keeps and begged for mercy that never came. But the crown was not satisfied with simple conquest. It was learning. Each night, Thorn felt Alara's lingering will clawing inside his mind. She had tried to end the cycle. He intended to perfect it. Under the crown's guidance, he began binding stronger souls. Fallen paladins, betrayed sorcerers, even the shade of Lord Commander Caedric Voss himself dragged screaming from whatever hell had claimed him. Caedric's ghost fought hardest. "You are not my daughter," the spectral knight roared as black chains wrapped his essence. She was better than this. Thorn only smiled with Alara's stolen sadness. She was. That is why she failed. He forged the bound souls into new lieutenants. The Ashen Court was born, 5 twisted champions wearing fragments of the original crown's power. One could summon blizzards of razor-sharp bone. Another walked as a living shadow that peeled skin from the living with every step. The strongest, a former queen who had poisoned her own children, now commanded swarms of corpse flies that carried plague wherever they flew. Together they carved a path toward the living heart of the continent, the golden spire of Varin, seat of the Holy Imperium that had watched Vailthar die without lifting a finger.